everyone. Today is March 20th, 2018, and you are listening to The Lifting. I am Joanna Michaels, and I am joined tonight by the other hosts of the show, Christopher Stephen Jacob and Katrina Schaff. And as always, we are thrilled you have joined us for this all-important conversation on possessions and influencing, all of which we like to call oppression. So we are not going to waste any time tonight. We're going to get right into the subject matter. But as always, before we get started on tonight's topic, we have an affirmation and blessing. So Chris, can you read that?
Yes, I can. To learn as we do, meaning the forest people, one must open one's heart to the slightest possibility that we, your brothers and sisters of the forest, exist at all. Then, as the mind's eye sees the truth, this will trigger the heartstrings. Then, the heartstrings are what we use to play music back to you all. Blessings to you all. Fuma.
Thank you. So as we have alluded to in the blog, it is our opinion that possession and influencing is really not well understood yet by most. There really are different layerings to this. The big, dramatic, obvious moments of this can be quite scary, but the less obvious moments are actually more damaging over time. The most devious and evil aspects of darkness are highly skilled in the day-to-day or moment-to-moment possessing and influencing. And they work extra hard at keeping us separated and not talking about such things. Most would not be ready for a real discussion of the nitty-gritty to all this, but we feel it needs to be understood. We're not trying to scare anyone, but we want to empower everyone. Again, the human DNA skin suit is amazing and is pre-programmed to learn and grow to overcome these issues. And here is where knowledge is power. Then we must know how to recognize those subtle influences that keep us separated. The psyche of fear and judgment are used with precision skill by the darkness. And anyone who feels that they are not vulnerable to the effects are, in our opinion, kidding themselves and most likely are under influence. It is quite rare right now on this earth plane that souls that are in a human DNA skin suit are not susceptible to these possessions and influences. And why? Because most of us have been caught up in the reincarnation cycle, and the darkness have had plenty of opportunity to try and oppress us and even alter the human DNA skin suit of our soul or our soul's mission to benefit them. So believe us when we say that it is an easy card to pull out by the darkness to have some angelic being or guide come in and tell you that you are now immune. Just go live in peace. For those who accept this, you can certainly be at peace, but you may be choosing no more growth. And actually, that is fine. We all go at our own pace. And the darkness is happy with this decision too, because your lack of growth means they can still dominate and control. This is our understanding of what is occurring right now. Don't shoot the messengers. We just report our current understanding. And of course, we tell you all, discern for yourself. So as far as definitions go, when we speak of possession, we are speaking of when an entity is actually within your energy field. This could be within your body or within your auric field. Many people like the term demon to describe these entities. And that's fine. I'm fine with that because there is certainly something nefarious going on. We just know that there are many different races or types of entities that try to exert their will on people, and we usually like to say which one it is if we know. But a generalization like that is perfectly fine. But the end result is the same. So using an umbrella term really, again, is just fine. When we speak of influencing, please think of this as more of a kind of telepathic insertion. And a telepathic insertion can come in many forms, from an entity doing it to artificial intelligence doing it. And this is where the Arconian binary network comes in, because it really is the epitome of a telepathic insertion. The effects of either possession or influencing can be somewhat similar, so either can cause a lot of harm, and knowing which one is which at the moment is sometimes irrelevant. But we know you all want to really understand, so we will try to tell you all that of which we understand so far. So let's first talk about possession. So let's just get down to the facts as we know them. Most all humans have had an entity enter their energy field at one time or another, and usually way more often than anyone would like to believe. So yes, practically everyone hearing my voice at one time or another in their lifetime has been possessed. Yes, that means you, that means me, that means Chris, etc. The goal of both possession and influencing is always domination and control, with the benefits to darkness being things such as energy harvesting for food, disruption and chaos to keep people in a fear or anger or debilitated state to destroy relationships, families, communities, nations, etc., and to keep an individual from personal growth so that they maintain domination and control. Possessions can be, in my opinion, sometimes like a drive-by shooting, out of the blue, just opportunistic, when the least amount of their energy being expelled to create maximum rewards to them. The entities literally pop in and out. Let me give you an example. Have you ever said something out loud that as soon as it came out of your mouth you thought, why did I do that? Why did I say something so harmful? That is not me. But the damage done is long-lasting, and you may have much regret. This is actually at times not you, but a drive-by possession. It can happen so quickly, and everyone is left hurting. When you or someone you love is asked, why did you do that? You or they may actually say, I don't know. Then you must reflect, because if it is a possession, they really could be telling the truth, that they do not know themselves what just occurred. Possessions that last longer than a drive-by type can rise and fall with periods of calm and then moments of explosions. And unfortunately, people can be tricked into giving consent for a much longer possession, some even being there for a whole lifetime. Being in a state of anxiety, fear, or anger will actually lower your frequency and make it easier for these entities to jump in. So look around you. What stimulus are you letting in? Are you in a constant state of anger or fear or anxiety? Why do you think they added as much drama and as much different stimulus to the environment around you? You know, you just watch the news, look what's going on, listen to the radio, drama, because they want to keep you in a state that actually makes you vulnerable to these types of possessions. So please think on this. And these entities, believe it or not, a lot of them are actually lazy. They will look within you for issues to latch onto to cause problems. So if you have anxiety and fear over any given subject, then they will hammer at it to keep it in the forefront of your minds and exaggerate those feelings. So let's say you feel taken advantage of in one area, and it could be just a single incident. It then swells larger to encompass all areas of your life. No one cares. Who can I trust? It just spirals out of control. Sometimes you even know that your thoughts are out of control, but you cannot seem to stop. If you have had moments like this, then it may be more than just you participating in that drama. So why does this go unseen? Well, let's just go back to the basics and ask, do you know who you are to know when something isn't you? There is a lot of effort to keep you distracted from knowing yourself. Then it makes it easier for people to accept that all of their behavior is actually their own. Now, please do not think we are saying that all should accept bad behavior because the person could be being victimized. We do not believe this at all. The conversation tonight is about awareness so that we can ensure, and we want you to reflect to ensure that our behavior represents us accurately with authenticity. So now on to influencing. We are bombarded by this all the time. It's actually amazing that we can even say our names. And in the case of the Arconian binary network, as we said in the last show and in the summertime, it has even been turned up to hammer us a bit more. So influencing can be done as well by both, again, entities and AI, such as that Arconian binary network. What I want to say here is pay attention. Sometimes the effects of something streaming in to affect you are subtle, but sometimes there are clues. Is there a weird feeling going on around your head? Is there a sharp stabbing pain that just somewhere seems to be occurring? Has a tone changed in one ear? Or do you have a sharp ear pain out of the blue? Other clues can be when something gets stuck in your head, like a jingle or a song or a phrase. Or worse yet, when a negative thought just keeps playing like a broken record. Many times influencing to make you fearful or angry will occur to make you more susceptible to an entity whose desires is to actually possess when the moment is right. And sometimes that influencing will be to give you a pain somewhere or GI upset just to get you upset, thinking something is wrong, so that you actually then co-create something wrong. Or again, to lower your frequency to allow something else in. Now again, we are not saying all aches and pains are not real, but sometimes they are influenced, and then the desire is to have you fully co-create the illness. Oftentimes, there is no way to know unless you include the medical industry. And then again, sometimes the medical industry is influenced as well. So it is complicated. I personally believe that spiritual practices, Eastern and Western medicine, will continue to come together to make a better holistic approach to care. But we are not perfected in that area. So just do the best you can and consider the spiritual aspect as well. If you go ahead and do things to, let's say, rule out spiritual influences, what harm have you done? Nothing. And this is where the fear of being ridiculed comes in. But this is where they are counting on your ego to take over, and the desire not to be seen as ridiculous keeps you sometimes from the actual cure. So please just think on this. And this is where my heart goes out to our children. We here have seen so many gifted children coming onto this earth plane, and it certainly gives us great hope for this world. So what has happened? As much as possible to keep them in a state of anxiety and fear and anger, so they are more susceptible to influencing and possession. So the next time you are called to school and your child does not know why they did what they just did, maybe that is the truth. Because making these gifted ones more susceptible is a top priority of the darkness, believe me. So please consider this. So yes, I think we can all say that the environment around our children has changed. But it is my humble opinion that it is more of an energetic and spiritual warfare unseen by most that is harming them, and a good clearing and understanding of the world around them is more needed than the drugs they are put on. So my hope is that the people will at least rule out spiritual issues before accepting pills as the definitive answer. So we will in a bit talk more on how to combat all of this, but first Chris and Katrina would like to give more food for thought on the subject. Chris?
All right. Give me a second. In this section, I'm going to describe how those known as the Dracos, Greys, insectoids, and AI have not only risen to power, but why they have. The knowledge that I'm about to share comes from my very own personal experiences in doing exorcisms on various people, as well as my own one-on-one encounters with Draco, known to some as demons. I will begin with a couple of personal experiences. This will lead up to possessions and oppression, of course. It all started back in 2013 at my home in Lincoln, Nebraska. At the time, I was doing heavy and paranormal investigation, which I still do. Have seen much in the way of evidence concerning all manner of spectral entities, but this incident in question made me turn a complete 180 degrees on how I treated as well as perceived the paranormal. I purchased the PSB7 Spirit Box, again, do various sessions around our home in the process, getting what I perceived at the time to be divine beings attempting to communicate over the equipment. To say that I was wrong was a complete and utter understatement. This evidence is still in my possession this very day, even though I've deleted 9/10 of it because it carried a very bad stigma, including the written records of it. And I've noticed even it written on paper had a foul stench. It does not get played or looked at, as I said. It's merely stored away to warn people of the dangers that still remain largely undetected by the paranormal community. After my various sessions with the Ghost Box, after recording an insurmountable of EVPs, I received a mysterious call on my phone that was purported to be from Michael. The voicemail that was left was anything but. I immediately posted it to YouTube and received a wave of compliments on my amazing pieces of evidence. As the weeks and months passed, my family and I became increasingly more and more agitated with not only one another, but in general at the very fabric of life itself. My mother and my stepfather became extremely enamored with the voicemail, some would say to the point of obsession. I, on the other hand, had a very different reaction. I told people that it was the voice of St. Michael and would not waver from it until a very talented friend of mine knocked me out of my stupor. Nothing anyone told me mattered. I was right, and that was the end of the discussion. We even began to smell the odor of cotton candy around our home, which we associated with angelic forces. Within channelings, I would receive constant confirmation as to the voicemail's validity, reassuring me that everything was quite all right and that there was nothing to fear. After my friend got me to see the light, I had the sad duty of reporting our findings to my family. At first, they did not believe me, stating why anything evil would say the things the voice in the message said. When they finally came to the realization the message was a fake, they were utterly devastated and lost some of their faith in the process. As time passed, I began to be tested on by my various guides and other ETs that visited me. One night, as my mother and I sat in the living room, we smelled the telltale sign of the cotton candy man. I began to feel a wave of anger come over me as I noticed a distortion of energy forming in the center of the room. My mother focused white light on the energy and dissipated it. I then took it a step further by locating to the source to see what it was that I was truly up against. Being was in shadow, was approximately 8 feet tall or higher, had a large head, scales, claws, and pointed teeth, with the signature look and feel of a reptilian life form. I tossed a light orb down its throat and watched as tiny people ran out of its mouth, signifying that he had consumed people's soul energy, both in ghostly form and from living people. From that point forward, I swore to never allow this to happen to anyone and began to investigate further, using my skills as both a psychic medium and a remote viewer. During my soul retrieval process, I had to recover many of my shards of spirit or soul shards from similar beings. Now I'm going to list the various behavioral traits associated with these beings' influences on people to show people that their negative actions may not always be their own. I will end this section on how to spot and eliminate this threat to our society and our world as a whole. Relationships falling apart. Within my many observations of these entities, I have discovered that they love to tear families, even couples, apart, sometimes resulting in very violent outcomes such as spousal abuse and even murder. However, within every situation, there is a point it can be noticed and then stopped, though it goes largely unnoticed by the people affected. It usually starts with increasing levels of anger within the household. Arguments over money and other topics are usually the favorites to expand upon by these beings. The way that they do this is by exerting their dominance over the people. On a purely psychic level, they make the people angry and fearful over the stupidest things, i.e. money, paranoia, etc., opening the door for even more negative activity within the home. Psychic interaction is not only the only way these dark creatures operate. I have noticed that when I do readings on people, a lot of times I find energy variations of the Draco or Greys that are literally possessing the person or persons, usually mimicking entities, mimickers, the energy beings of the sort. In those cases, I usually have to go in after the being using bilocation. When the entities in question are removed, the household becomes peaceful once again, and in some cases, the people have no active memory of what happened or why they acted the way that they did. because when the entity is removed, sometimes that memory goes with it because it wasn't the memory of the person, it was the memory of the entity and the active thought processes of the entity. Observations. In everyday situations, people go through their lives not knowing that they could possibly have an attachment or be possessed. In everyday social situations, a possession could mean the difference between you being seen as you are by your peers or seen as something other than what you are, or doing something other than what you are doing. For example, say you are out on a date or out socially. A possession could speak telepathically on a subconscious level to the person you are on a date with, telling them subliminally how horrible you are, or make you seem like you are using a tone that you aren't, or making it seem that you are saying something that you aren't. This happens a lot more than you would all think that it does. It goes that far down the rabbit hole. I found a man once that didn't know why women were looking at him and treating him the way that they had been. He had been doing nothing wrong. It turned out that he had a very deep-set possession of a woman that knew him in a past life. They had been married, and she was jealous that he was pursuing other women. So she would put a thought in the other women's heads to keep away from him or be disgusted by him. When she was forcibly removed, his social life was restored to normal, or at least in a state that he did not know what normal was because this person had always been there. Another example of this also happens a lot more than you would think that it does. Mimicking entities such as mimicker demons, Draco, Greys, and insectoids will make it seem as if the person you are with is saying something or doing something that they are not. This is all to start a fight or end the relationship, as I previously stated. An example of this is this. I met a woman who is having relationship troubles with her man. One incident in particular was one where they were just in their room, when all of a sudden she yelled out to him, "Oh my God, don't hit me," when in fact he was just standing there doing nothing at all. One way to know that mimickers are around is this. In most cases, people will have a partial dream of a cell phone going off or a phone ringing. During the night, people will hear family members talking in the hallway or another room, even while they are asleep. In one case, I heard two friends coming home an entire day earlier than they said they would. I and their dogs even heard their car pull up and them talking as they turned the key in the door. Their dogs reacted as if they were. When I went to greet them, they weren't there. When I was younger, we used to see and hear my mother's car pull in the driveway. Our dog reacted, yet nothing there. This is a mimicker demon attempting to get closer to the house, and you by gaining the consent by someone stating or accepting the being's presence. Meaning, if you believed that it was your friend or family member, you would automatically think they're home, thus giving consent to the demon. This goes for if you hear them in the hallway, go, "Oh, that's my family, they belong there," therefore the demon sees that as consent. Mimickers, once they possess you, love to mimic medical conditions such as stroke and heart attack. They will then telepathically convince their victim that they indeed are having a stroke or heart attack. There are implants that do these things as well. We've been talking about spectral inclusions. Those are implants with consciousnesses. They do very similar things to mimicker demons and attachments. I put them in the possession category and attachment and oppression category. Another sign someone is possessed is if they look in the mirror way too much. This is the possessing entity wanting to see what they look like. This is actually a more common one than you think. This is not vanity. This is something different than a person, combing their hair in the mirror or something like that. This is more of a blank stare the person will give at themselves in the mirror. This is the entity just wanting to see what the shell they're inhabiting looks like and what they look like in it. Like somebody, putting on a shirt or putting on a tie or a jacket. They want to see what they look like. And they'll stand there and go, huh, okay, yeah, and they'll just have this weird stare. You'll probably have seen those on some of those ghost shows out there, too. They had a lot of very good examples out there of that. Manufactured wars. For centuries now, Earth has been at war with itself in some form or another. One side playing the role of the villain, and one side playing the role of the hero. The for and against conspiracy, as I call it. In all cases, the wars could have been averted in some way through peaceful means, but the overwhelming urge to fight and kill has just been far too strong to fight. These wars are often the result of the Draco and various other beings such as the Harvester Spheres, Mimickers, Spindly Greys, Insectoids, Archons, etc. However, 9 times out of 10, it is the Draco Reptilians and all the rest that are responsible. Usually, people blame the Draco, but it's all of these groups. You as a listener are more than likely asking yourself why. And this is something that people generally don't like to touch on, but no, we're going to do that. So I will present what I have learned to help in my own way to answer that very question. The way I see it is this. These beings thrive off darkness generated by us, a food source, if you will. So in order to create said food source, they manufacture the conditions by which said source can and is created. Most times, these entities will utilize what is already there within the mind or minds of the intended victim or victims and expand on those thoughts. As was previously stated, they will cause for and against. However, they will even do this within the very mind of the person using their very own memories. Say you had a bad memory of a fight you had with a loved one. It does not matter how long ago this memory was. They will use this and use this to cause and feed off of an argument within your own mind. This is very important, and it is very important not to placate to this ploy and not participate in this sick game. Separate yourself from this fight in your mind. Be either I am so sorry, people. This is something is trying to screw me up here. Separate yourself from this fight in your mind. Be either rewriting the thought to good or by stepping outside of the thought, not becoming the other side of the argument. You see, every argument is two-sided, dualistic in nature. So what needs to occur to stop it? In either the thought case or the real argument, it is imperative that the for and against be stopped by one side not giving in, even if the thought or argumentative behavior is on the part of the other person. Hang on, I am so sorry. I am getting screwed up here. In either the thought case or a real argument, it is imperative that the for and against be stopped by one side not giving in, even if the thought or argumentative behavior on the part of the other person continues. It is in an attempt to gain such needed energy by these forces, since they use it for their very survival.
And you know what, just to interrupt for a second, just to say, we've experienced this too. And the one thing that, we say in this instance, if you think there is a possibility that something like that is going on and you could be getting into an argument with someone, especially a loved one, and something could be influencing it, again, a lot of times these things come out of the blue and it doesn't make sense. Be strong enough to see what's going on and just walk away. Just walk out of the room, just walk 20 feet, whatever. Make a decision not to participate in it. You want to dispel this. You want to take the air out of the balloon and just make an agreement while you're calm. If you really believe that these types of things exist, make a pact, make an agreement that that is what will occur. Taking a time out at the moment to walk away from it will usually diffuse it. So consider doing that.
Okay, yes, exactly. And you notice that as I'm trying to read, something is actually starting to try to screw me up because we're actually informing on this subject. It is extremely important that we inform on this subject because it is so vast in nature. So the next part, possession and oppression. These two concepts are often confused with one another since they are so very similar in symptoms. Oppression is where the victim is being hit with negative thoughts, waves, and energy from an outside negative source, which changes their thought and behavior patterns from positive to negative, usually very quickly. However, I've seen cases where it has been an ongoing slow buildup in negativity and a continuing pattern of negative behavior. Voice to skull, which is the Arconian binary network technology, falls under this category. So does negative telepathy. To me, it is a form of mental rape and should never be allowed. The imposed for and against on a mental level as well as the external level also fall under this category. As was stated before, step outside of this scenario by either cutting the cord in your own mind or just walking away from an argument. Put yourself in your very own heart space, even if you cannot feel the move to your heart. State quite often that you live and exist within your heart space. That way you co-create it. Also, in the case of ghost activity, it is very important that they not remain within your home. That said, a ghost that has died of even a small wound can affect you in ways that you had not ever counted on. Some people have told me that they don't mind the ghosts being in their home so long as they do not scare them. However, their mere presence can harm you. Say someone died of a gunshot to the heart. This may transpose over to you as a chest pain. Say someone died of a head wound. This may transpose over to you as a bad headache. Say someone committed suicide. This may cause someone in your home to do the same. Sometimes with the help of the aforementioned bad guys, usually, actually. And it is never a good idea to keep a ghost in your home, no matter if they are nice or not. They are not only targets for the Draco and other bad entities, they entangle your earthly life in energy that can potentially send your life into askew. Also with possessions, I was going to say, with possessions it's a little bit different where the entity is actually in your auric field, as we said in the beginning, and within your energy core. In most cases in possessions, I usually find the entity is completely and totally bonded to the individual in some fashion. It's an extra step beyond just outside influencing. There is a complete takeover, a mannerisms, personality, all of that. It's like a melding, if you are mind meld, if you will, in that respect. And they're slightly more difficult to get out of people. They're more than just grabbing them. You really have to fight to pull them out, but it is actually much easier than what people are led to believe, and we will get to that in a little while. I'm going to tell you a story, one of when I was possessed by a ghost. After we helped purge the Gettysburg Soul Trap, unbeknownst to me, I had carried back with me a passenger, a ghost wanting to hitch a ride back to the southern states. For weeks after we got back to South Carolina, I felt horrible. I felt like my mind was not my own, and that my feelings, not my own, were going through my head. We eventually took a trip to Georgia, where I discovered that I had a Civil War soldier named Mark within my core. I was not able to push him out because of the nature of the area that we were in. I would normally use my energy to push out any attachment, but my positive energy was being taken by strange entities in that area. So I got a hold of my mother, and she spoke to Mark. We both found out that Mark left his family in Georgia and went off to fight in the Civil War. He then died at the Battle of Gettysburg and had been trapped there by the spheres. When released, he hitched a ride in me and dislodged when we made it to Georgia. He did not know any passage of time had passed, simply that he wanted to see his family. We then convinced him to move on to the other side where his family was waiting for him with open arms. We too had a past life connection with this man because we were the ones that killed him there, and a piece of us was still with him. Hence, the true reason for us going to Gettysburg in the first place, unbeknownst to us, that is. With possessions, the symptoms are the same, as I said, But in these cases, the negative beings are not transmitting from outside yourself, but from within. In this case, it is very important that you know who you are. That way, you know if something has a hold on you. All manner of demons have been known to do this, as well as ghosts have been known to do this. This can drastically change the behavior of the person. Implants known as spectral inclusions also fall into this category, as well as timed ailments, such as implants placed under one's heart to cause a heart attack, in the brain to cause a stroke, or behind the knees to wear away the cartilage, as to distract one from one's life purpose with pain. I have even found them at the base of people's spines and embedded within people's sciatic nerves to cause the condition known as sciatica. Fibromyalgia also falls under this as well. In fact, it falls under both oppression and possession, as well as dimensional interference. Just know that conditions such as fibromyalgia, depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, and any other such condition simply does not exist. The symptomology does exist, but these labels of disease are not the actual cause. Impotence, erectile dysfunction, as well as its opposite, sexual addiction and over-sexual behavior, are also all forms of possession and oppression. In the case of erectile dysfunction, it is that energy that is being stolen from you by an energy collector or succubus-type entity. Even negative nymphs and spindlies fall under this category. Think about this for a moment. Sex for you isn't what it should be, regardless of how old or young. That part of you just isn't working correctly. Then, the guilt of not performing right sets in. This is all oppression, since it is usually another negative force causing all of this, feeding off the guilt, etc. In the case of sexual addiction, the person states that they simply could not stop or help themselves. Porn is usually involved. I found out that this is a mix of programming, in some cases possession, and oppressive reptilian behavior. Granted, all addictions and weird habits are the result of negative AI reptilian gray behavior, but the sexual addiction is far more potent since it feeds on our basic pleasures and desires. The Cabal loves to use female vampiric forces as well as oppressed incarnated nymphs for this. In the case of the female vampire, they use sex as a weapon. In the case of the incarnated oppressed nymph, they were forced into the human coat from a very high vibration of sexual energy, so they simply cannot be satisfied in that area at all. I am not saying that all hypersexual people are oppressed or possessed, just those that negativity has taken hold. Just know, in all cases, if a thought in your own head simply does not stop, and you find yourself in a situation that you simply cannot stop or help yourself, it is more than likely possession or oppression affecting you. Dream time. A while back we did an episode entitled Dream On, where we described how a lot of manipulation and oppression occurs in the dream world. It is equally as imperative that everyone listen and go back and listen to that episode and do the Dreamtime revocation every morning upon waking up. Dreams were originally designed as a space where we get downloads of information from source as well as from our benevolent guides, but have been hijacked by a plethora of negative entities attempting to get people to agree and consent to their agendas. Sometimes these forces can hit you with seemingly immense strength, but just know that you are much stronger than you know. These entities are nothing but bullies. If you stand your ground and become as difficult as possible, they will give up and find another easier target. They are very lazy by nature, so show them what a sovereign being can do. In some reports, I've even seen that people are discovered dead with deep claw marks in the chest, and in some cases their heads are even missing. This is yet another way they create fear amongst the people. This is the Draco in particular. The way this is stopped is relatively easy. Just do not buy into the so-called fear porn. I hate using that term, but this is up there with false flag, folks. Generated by our day-to-day grind. Strive for better in your life. If you don't like your job and are depressed, nothing is stopping you from leaving the fear. Remember to visualize what you want and think of specifically of how you are interacting with others. Find new and better ways to live and don't take things like the news so seriously, since most of it is manufactured anyway. What is the point to letting yourself get enthralled by it? I say there is none. Also, when money is short, remember this. It is only a piece of paper with an image of a long-dead human being on the front. It only has as much value as the people give it. The less value we give the almighty dollar, the less control such as the cabal and other handlers of their handlers, the Draco, have over you. But do see the value of abundance, meaning having your needs met. See them being met and the happiness and joy you and others are in because of it. See yourself and family and friends coming together to support others in need. Then spend time with them dreaming in joy and happiness and abundance. Tell each other what abundance means for you, to the point that it leaves you in that wonderful place of joyful laughter. Evolve as a people and know that we are all one. This is the key to defeating the darkness. The years of possession and oppression have intentionally driven us apart, so we do not co-create our thoughts together. All right, let's see. I'm going to go further ahead here. I believe we can actually go to my mother at this time. I believe we were at that point in the show. So you can go right ahead.
Good evening, everyone. As possession and oppression are often confused, so are possession and obsession. Also, addiction can play a major part in possession. There really is not too much of a difference in all of these. They all work hand in hand with one another to make sure your spirit is broken, your world is turned upside down, your health is not good, and that all relationships are destroyed or at least damaged. They want you to be alone, sad, fearful, unhealthy, angry with violence, and sometimes even suicidal. They want you subservient to their needs and their agendas. How do they choose who to mess with and who to focus on? I believe everyone is susceptible to this, but some are singled out for the worst abuse. A lot of people think to become possessed, you have to be pure of heart and a very good person. This happens too, but they are not singled out any more than anyone else. It occurs to good spiritual people, but it actually can happen to anyone. They also like people with attachments, many problems, imperfect relationships, and environments that are negative. They love when you fight, have dysfunction of any kind, vices, addictions, and health issues that are physical, mental, and emotional. They know what buttons to push and when to push them. Some takeovers of our bodies are not where beings step in and take over your body, but where a being feeds on what you do with your body, what you believe is the truth, attachments that are inside your body, and the environment in which you choose to live. All these things can be bait for possession. It is important to take a long look at yourself and where and how you live. It is important to make changes in yourself and your environment for the positive. Also, please be careful of the company you keep and the activities you include yourself in. These are not just things to avoid possession, but are things to keep in mind for all things in life. Addiction is something a negative being likes to target. It is not always a demon or a negative entity. Addiction is a major attraction to ghosts. Chris mentioned how dangerous it can be to have a ghost living in the house. It is true. Not every person that crosses over is good. If they choose to stay and not move on, they usually have the same personality, needs, and vices that they did when they were alive. These things change when they officially cross, but who they were in life usually remains the same until they do cross. If you were a jerk in this life, you most likely are still a jerk in the afterlife, if you choose to remain hovering in this dimension. So if a being was a drunk, a drug addict, sex-obsessed, destructive gambler, overeater, and so on, the human that is doing any of this becomes a target. They use you to get their fixes. They want to taste that liquor again. They want to get high. have sex, taste food, or live in a similar environment as they did when they were alive. You need to be aware that these vices and addictions do draw negative attention to you. Some things are not actual possessions, but cause your mind and body to break down and make you weak for possession, or at least for attachments to take place. Dreams are one way they get to us. They're not really dreams, but ways for negative entities to get through to us. Dreams that are scary and possibly prophetic can cause fear about ourselves and our future. They can take away hope and leave us open to other dark entities. As Chris mentioned, voice-to-skull technology plays a big part in causing us to go nuts and even turning dark just to make it go away. Clones, mimickers, fake angels, and guides that are not really guides are ways to affect us negatively. Make sure who you are talking and relating to. Feel through your heart space what you are really dealing with, and most of all, please discern. Not everything is as it appears to be. Anything that stunts your spiritual growth and keeps you from the real truth is not there for your highest good. Demand its true identity and revoke it. Make sure what you are interacting with is not detrimental to your spirit. Aliens also work through manipulation. They like to prey on people that are looking for the real truth and then turn around and attempt to stop us from sharing that information with anyone that will listen. Aliens alone and aliens working hand in hand with the cabal, as we know, do not want the true reality revealed. They are capable of anything to stop the truth. They attack, sometimes possess, play off our weaknesses and our fears, our sadness and anger, to name just a few. Their abductions of us can be used for lab purposes for their agendas, but letting us think we were abducted, or actually abducting us, and then reminding us constantly of what they did to us, really helps them reach their goal of sucking the last piece of sanity from us. Aliens usually do not take full possession of our bodies, but with the things they do to us, it can put us in a ripe state for possession, or at least extreme fear, so we stop pursuing the truth. It puts us in such a confused negative state, which opens the door to the negative. Attachments are not really a possession. They can be, but usually attachments are caused by past memories and or events that we have not let go of. There are many examples of attachments, but attachments can be removed with dealing with the issue that caused them, or at least being aware something is wrong and that you need help. Seeking competent help on any of these issues is the best way to get rid of these problems and to move on with your life. Are there characteristics that are common in people that are under attack by negative forces? All the things we have talked about tonight are forms of attacks and possessions. Here are some things you can look for and be aware of in yourself or another person that is under attack. They usually have a reversed nature. One minute they're happy and laughing, and the next they are angry and violent. They just do not seem like themselves at all. They do not look like themselves in their eyes. Their smile can change, their posture, and even the way they walk can change. A normally kind and gentle person becomes combative, vicious in words and actions, looks for fights, blames everyone and everything for what is happening, takes everything personal, starts having interest in things that are not normal for them, and so on. Just look for things that are not normal for that person. Also know the sudden addictions are also signs. A change in sleep patterns, fatigue, lack of motivation, and lack of concentration can also be signs that something is very wrong. I have also noticed that loss of memory and forgetting common words and things and common events that are also signs of affliction. The home where this person resides can also be under attack with strange energies, paranormal activity, and this activity can become full of poltergeist-like events. I want to mention also that animals are very aware when a person is under attack or possessed. They tend to shy away from that person. Please know that animals can also become possessed, especially if they are in an environment that is negative. They tend to take things on just to protect the people they love. Once someone has been exorcised or attachments removed, I believe there are still things that must be done. First, let go of the fear that it is gone and that it may come back. See it is gone and that everything is in eternal protection. The things that remain are things I call leftovers. These can be little energies still hiding in the house. It is important that you do a cleansing, not only on the house, but on all people living in the house and yourself. So be sure to complete this event with a personal clearing ritual such as saging, or whatever you're comfortable with. Keep clearing until everything feels normal again. Then be very proactive about protecting yourself and your home. Do your protection rituals, say your revocations, call in your guides to watch over you and protect you, and do whatever you need to do to keep you and your home clean and the energy positive. Possession, obsession, oppression, and addiction are things that are reversible and curable. Please note that possession, like in The Exorcist, is not a normal occurrence, and most things negative are reversible. Never think you cannot change a situation like this. Once you're aware of the problem, take steps to change it. Whether it is you or someone that loves you that finds you help, just know that the outcome is positive. We just cannot let the dark win. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you. That was actually very good. Some of the things I do want to bring up here at the end of the show before I see if any galactics when I come in are a couple of the things that are no-nos when it comes to releasing a possession or attachment. And one of the things that gets me rather frustrated is when I see crucifixes being waved in people's faces and priests with holy water, etc. And they're yelling at the demon demanding it leave the person or asking it to leave. These do not work. The only time it works is if a person is in their home standing their ground. This is not with any of these religious artifacts. One example I want to use that actually did frustrate me, because it took several days for this person to not be possessed. It was a very bad demon entrenchment, one of the worst actually in history, where it was a young boy who had become possessed, and the priests were called, and they were performing what they thought was an exorcism, by putting the cross on the forehead, sprinkling holy water, the demon playing along by getting angry, and they're yelling at it, demanding it leave. This went on for 3 or 4 days. I believe it actually went on for a week. And all the while, this boy's core energy was being used up by this demon. What it was doing was playing along with those priests, making them think that they were actually gaining ground when in fact they were backtracking. The things like the crucifix and all them were created by these entities. So there is no way that anything that they create would be able to repel them. The fact that they were relying on external tools would never have completely worked. Of course, external things do work, just not that. And what ended up happening is somebody was eventually smart enough to call in Michael. Michael came in and pulled the demon loose. What we've said about the rules of engagement, they have to be asked. Eventually, after that week-long struggle, the demon was eventually destroyed. But in those cases, just know that doing an all-out battle with the demon may seem like it's a very good idea, but I have learned this from experience. Putting that energy, that type of energy, other than more than just defense and eradicating a demon off of a property, if you go into that temperamental mode where you're going, saber rattling at this demon and flipping them off and doing all the stuff I know that people want to do, you're feeding that very demon and basically consenting to them coming back. So none of those techniques actually work. Is there something you wanted to actually add here, Joanna?
Well, so we really hope that we've tried really hard to help everyone really understand the depths of all of this. And it's hard to, I think, to really, because of movies like The Exorcist or whatever, where people, have their mindset on what that really means. But, We often talk here of, I'll say, well, maybe Chris needs to put you through the car wash. That certainly is better than saying, well, you may actually need to be checked over to see if you are possessed and need an exorcism. So we can say things in a nicer way, but the truth is that this is common practice. You have the truly dramatic events, and then you have it, unfortunately, that is affected most all of us in our lives and in our families' lives, and that is a hard pill to swallow. But we want you to know that really now knowledge is power, and that you really, really need to become aware. And do not be embarrassed to talk about it. Talk about it with friends that you trust and family. I'll tell you that for me, instances that happened over the past few years, where in my mind I have said one thing and I have people around me that I trust without a doubt, and luckily I had friends like that I really trusted, who said, that is not, who were getting a little offended, and then they told me what literally came out of my mouth. And what literally came out of my mouth, that is not what I heard or thought I said in my own head. And if I didn't have the trust of the people that were around me, that maybe I could have said those things, but my own head, heard something else. So these things can actually happen, but you've got to have people around you that you really can talk to about this and that you really trust. And unfortunately, that's been a game of the darkness, to get you to trust no one, not your family. Everyone's out to get you. That's how their ploy has gone down. But do not be embarrassed to talk about this. There are more and more people who are opening up and understanding a little bit better that, yes, this really is a possibility in our world. When you finally do start talking about this in a general way, you're going to find that there are plenty of people around you who actually themselves have been waiting for someone to talk about this with. So please, please do not be embarrassed. We said earlier about the Dreamtime revocation. Again, please, please speak on the Dreamtime revocation. Again, if you never saw that show, please go back and watch the show where we talk about Dreamtime. It's called Dream On. Really, we do the Dreamtime revocation every day. We're not just telling you to do it. We do it because we know that the area and the vulnerability during our dream time and within our subconscious are the last areas that the human is going to be able to really conquer. So just revoke these agreements. Your benevolent beings know what happens during dream times. They are not going to be getting you to agree to things during that time. Only negativity is going to take advantage of you there. So just revoke anything that happened. And consider again that when you're doing your daydreaming, or that could be happening. So include in that Dreamtime revocation that I also revoke anything with any malicious beings that could have occurred that I'm not even quite aware of right now during my daydreaming time or even in my subconscious mind. You don't have to remember everything. Just be proactive and say, if I did any of this, I revoke it. And just put that out there, and then do it the next day and do it the next day, so that you're kind of constantly cleaning up any accidental mess that you may have put yourself into. And you won't remember it, but what harm does it do to go ahead and say you revoke it just in case? Parents, please, please remember that you have a lot, and I say parents and grandparents, you have a lot that you can do for your children. So we've tried to explain that before, that children, their parents can do things on their behalf in a spiritual sense until they get towards their mid-teens, when they're considered mature enough to be able to do things on their own. So any of these revocations and wards for smaller children, let's say, 14, 15 or under, do them for them. They don't even have to know you're doing it for them. But that is something that every parent or grandparent can do for the children in their family to help protect them. And so please, please consider doing this for yourself. And when you're doing it for yourself, for the children in your family. Again, what we have said earlier, think about this. Do not allow yourself to dwell too long in negative thoughts. Literally, allow yourself to take a time out. Take a time out. Just say to yourself, I don't want to think about this right now, and I'm going to take a time out. Then look for something that makes you joyful. Go look at a picture you like. Go outside and look at flowers. I love the weeds that come out now in the South, because if you really look close to what people call weeds and they're buying Roundup floor, there's some very beautiful flowers in there. They're very tiny, but go look for that. Go watch the birds and watch a funny animal video. You know what I mean? Watch the cats. Watch something. Make yourself have a time out so that you can stop yourself before your frequency gets too low. So actively pay attention for this and then do something about it. I like the ideas of, again, mantras. When I'm really feeling heavily oppressed and it's dawning on me that something is trying to influence me, I just start my mantra. And really the truth of the fact is that the heart space and the energy that comes from it is way greater in force than the energy that's put out by hate. So my capacity to love is greater than yours to hate. If you say that to yourself over and over and you just listen intently to your own words that you are saying, you will feel a change in your heart space. And then as you think of it, think of whatever that brings joy into your life. Think of your children playing. Think of your loved one. Take a time out from this negative. Start saying that mantra and then envision what makes you happy. I'm going to tell you quite honestly, if I have a hard time, I oftentimes think of Joyous from Lycarian because, you know, he's a wonderful being. He's full of joy and love. He's a friendly frog figure. And I will have my mind go to him because from that I can actually even build to other images. And you will feel literally your chest change. And you will then feel more love come in. Because at that moment that you're trying to do that, believe me, your guides are singing to you to try and also help you raise it. You're all in it together. And then we tell you, you should never be ashamed to get help. The cost of actually going to a professional, be it a psychic like Chris or Katrina, be it a shaman that has a good reputation for this or another psychic, is certainly worth trying versus just going straight to medication or something for the rest of your life. It is worth it, and you are worth it. And people need to give consideration that if they've done other things and they think they still need help, do not be ashamed and go and get professional help and speak to someone about this. People are oftentimes amazed at what can happen in just one session when someone can go in and clear away some of this negativity. For me, I'll just tell you a simple story. You know, I was one of those people. Years ago who was so concerned about what society thought at large that I stayed in a situation of being oppressed and actually myself seeing beings that were oppressing me, but I was literally too embarrassed to reach out for help because I was more concerned about what family members would think of me or friends if they found out what I was doing. And then it took me months and months, and I suffered months and months and months until I finally did it. And in one amazing meeting, I could not believe what was relieved, from my life. So that happened to me. So I understand what you feel like if you feel hesitant to do this, because I walked that way myself for a while. So again, promote a good environment. Remember that. Try to stay in a good environment. And, this is where we've also been learning about the orgone and what it can do. Learn about orgone. If you feel if you feel called to learn about it, to make it. I mean, there are things out there. Understand the power of stones and different things that are around in crystals to help you learn about it. There is a lot we can all do about this. So, Chris?
Yes, we're at that point in the show where there's usually a galactic contribution. And as far as I can see, there are a couple, but this time they're all forest people. So I know on other shows that I've done, Fuma has come through and spoken, and so is Mirnak and Tilnorskus. But with this, I believe it is Fuma that wishes to speak on this. I don't know exactly what he's going to say, but I know it's per the subject tonight. So I'll see what he brings through. Give me a minute. This is Fuma, or the one you know as. My people, known as the Forest People, Sasquatch, Anakam, all of the above, greet you this evening. In this, I wish to state very briefly that in these cases of oppression and possession and any other oppressive force, know this. It is most important that you all know who you truly are, to know when you are not present. And what I mean is this. Say you have the utmost confidence that you know who you are, or you think you know who you are, yet the entire time you have had a possession overtake you. You think these thoughts are your own, and they are not. There might be a minuscule, microscopic thought in there, as you would say, that is your own, but it has been widened to a chasm, and widened to the point where you are not recognizable to the people around you. In this, I must say this, there are two sides to this. The people that do not recognize you as you anymore, and the being that has taken hold of you. When you do your inner work and know who you truly are, and know who you stand and what you stand for, then, in this instance, you will be completely sovereign and know that these personality traits that are either raining down from above or emanating from within are not your own thoughts and feelings and aspects of yourself. There may be even entanglements that you do not know of. There may be even dimensional aspects that you do not yet know of. All things in this particular respect are defeated by the heart space alone. Yes, you must use your brain and common sense, but it is imperative that aside from this, that grand neocortex, as you call it, rain down into your heart space, and you live from within there. In this particular instance, that hits a frequency that not only we communicate on, but also is a frequency toxic, and most allergically so, to these spindlies and other menacing entities that we remove constantly from this zone in which we live. I have made this brief. However, I am always around, and my people are always around watching each and every one of you in these dark times and in these light times, and know that we will all speak together again, as we have said, in the sunlight, as we have in ancient times. This is Fuma, and I bid you a blessing of my people. Thank you. All right. Does anyone else want to come through before we call this? No? Oh, you were it, Fuma? Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. With this end, the one thing we want to say, people, before we leave with the affirmation and blessing is that, this all-important conversation is really one half of the total conversation we're going to have. Next week, we're going to talk about something that if this wasn't hard enough to really swallow, to contemplate, maybe what we're going to talk about is a little bit more. Because
we are extremely strong co-creators. And you need to understand that you, even as a good person with good intent, can, with your co-creative skills, actually cause harm to another person. And we're going to talk about that in depth so that you truly have a really broad perspective of how oppression can actually harm in so many different ways, and how oftentimes thoughts that really for some are their good intent can also be harmful to people. So we're going to carry this conversation on again in a little bit more next week. But with that, we thank you for joining us tonight. And Katrina, if you don't mind sending us out with the affirmation and blessing.
I shall no longer allow. Excuse me, there was an echo here. I shall no longer allow negative thoughts or feelings to drain my energy. Instead, I shall focus on all the good that is in my life. I will think it, feel it, and speak it. By doing so, I will send out vibes of positive energy into the world, and I shall be grateful for all the wonderful things it will attract into my life.
All right. That was great. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Have a great week.